Hello everyone, and welcome back to DFT'S Dungeon. My name is Daniel Terry, and about 2 months ago, I threw a poll out on YouTube asking you guys which album I should cover on the channel next, and you guys overwhelmingly voted for Reborn by Living Sacrifice. And that was, of course, right before I decided to step away from YouTube for a while because my job was literally draining my life force away. But the good news is that I took a trip out of town a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to kind of clear my head and work through some of the things that were bothering me. And I'm happy to report that after the mental break, I came back feeling empowered. Or maybe that's not the right word to use. Maybe it's reborn empowered. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but I'm a dad. I got 4 kids. I got to make dad jokes. However, I feel compelled to warn you that if you haven't watched my Living Sacrifice video from last year, where I talk about the first 3 Living Sacrifice albums, I would highly recommend you go back and watch that one as well, because this one picks right up where that one left off. Now, when we last checked in with Living Sacrifice, it was right after they'd released their 3rd album, Inhabit. And things were kind of looking up for the band at that time, because they ended up going on this tour with Malevolent Creation to support Inhabit. But at the same time, the band's record label, REX, was in the process of going bankrupt, which left the band kind of as free agents, if that's how musicians refer to themselves when they're between record contracts. And to make matters even worse, the band's singer and bass player, Darren Johnson, ended up stepping down from the band, which left the band with no singer and no label, and for a lot of bands, that probably would have been the end. But the thing about Living Sacrifice is that they had made quite an impact on the small scene that was developing at the time in the mid to late 90s. So those first 3 albums were staples to a lot of Christian metal fans at the time. And it just so happened that one of those fans was Brandon Ebel, the owner of Tooth and Nail Records, who started aggressively courting the band during this period. Tooth and Nail was working on this new sub-label called Solid State, which was focused on heavier and more extreme bands, and signing Living Sacrifice to Solid State was about as good of an idea as deciding to add jelly to peanut butter in between 2 slices of bread. And since the band was short both a bass player and a singer, guitarist Bruce Fitzhugh stepped up to the microphone to cover lead vocals, and Jason Truby's brother, Chris Truby, joined on bass guitar. And with a now fully formed lineup, the band would enter Pointer's Palace in Little Rock, Arkansas, and record an album that would change the face of Christian hardcore and metal forever. And in this video, we're going to go through it track by track and try to explain why it is so iconic. But before we start our track by track, let's hear a word from this video's sponsor. Hey guys, this video's sponsor is me, Daniel Terry. And the only thing that I'm going to ask you guys to do is to find the link to join my email list in the description of this video. And I know that you guys are thinking, Dan, an email list, really, in 2025? But, here's the thing. When I release a new video, a lot of you guys don't get notified by YouTube. YouTube just decides it's only going to show some of you guys my new video. And that's kind of a bummer on my side of things because I'm excited for you guys to see it. And I assume that if you're subscribed that you also want to see it. So it'd be a lot cooler if I could send you guys an email whenever I post a video letting you guys know, when I have updates or if something's delayed or when I'm posting something new. I'm not going to spam you guys. I'm not going to overload your inbox, but I will rest easier at night knowing that you have been informed. Is that cool? All right, cool. Let's get back to the video. Okay, now that that's over, let's jump into this 12-track monster by Living Sacrifice. Let me just put the disc in. Track 1, Reborn Empowered. Reborn Empowered kicks the whole thing off with a minute-long intro that is all about building hype and anticipation for what's coming next. Because remember that this was a lot of people's first time hearing the band in this new configuration with Bruce on lead vocals. How different was this gonna sound from the band's last 3 albums?
The suspense is terrible. He's gonna go this time. I hope it'll last.
And then exactly at 1 minute, the band kicks into a ferocious thrash metal riff, and then Bruce comes bellowing in on lead vocals about 10 seconds later. And finally, the band that they have evolved into is fully revealed here on Reborn Empowered. Because in an unexpected but welcome move, the band has kind of taken a swing backward into their thrash metal roots. On Reborn, Living Sacrifice mixes thrash riffing with more complex drum patterns and hardcore vocals. Bruce Fitzhugh's vocals on Reborn are iconic for the era and really brought Living Sacrifice's sound to the cutting edge of heavy music. Not just a clever name, but an absolute revelation of what was possible within the emerging genre of metalcore in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The band may not get a lot of credit due to their religious affiliation, but they were there in 1997 and they were innovating. Number 2, Truth Solution. Truth Solution pounds in next with this start-stop pattern with talking in between the riffs. It's cool. And it kind of bubbles and churns till out of it comes this absolutely biting main riff, with Bruce using his voice as a percussive instrument. This song was the first song on Reborn where I remember really feeling that bass under the riffs and giving it that really nice, heavy, low end. There's a solo about 3 minutes into this song that sounds absolutely unhinged, and Truth Solution is another banger. Number 3, Threatened. Threatened comes up next and starts with a melodic introduction, which is probably the part on the album where they sound the most like old school Living Sacrifice. They were always fond of using these like creepy melodic passages on previous albums, and it's used to really great effect here, giving us another memorable intro like we got with Reborn Empowered. And that's something that I love about Reborn too, is that they really spend time making the intros to these songs super memorable. Whereas on previous Living Sacrifice albums, especially on Inhabit, it could sometimes be really hard to remember what song I was listening to. On Reborn, everything feels unique from one another. Threatened is the most melodic song on the album with the exception of Presence of God, but it doesn't make it a soft song at all, because even to this day, that fake out outro that they do still gets me. Number 4, Awakening. Awakening gallops in next with a strong double bass beat and a main riff that cuts like a razor blade. I just can't get over how in the pocket Living Sacrifice is on Reborn. They're just so tight, and in the 1990s, that took a lot of practice. Awakening has some awesome backup vocals courtesy of Jason Truby. I really like hearing him and Bruce go back and forth. I could gush on these songs a lot more than I am, but we kind of want to keep this video at under an hour, right? Number 5, 180. The song 180 builds up slowly, and then in typical Reborn fashion, it locks into a main riff so catchy that you're going to have a hard time getting it out of your head after I play this clip. I also really like here how the vocal patterns gel with the riffing in a really satisfying way. If you've listened to a lot of metalcore that was released in the 90s, the screaming oftentimes didn't really match up very well with the music because the genre was still kind of solidifying itself into a thing at all. But there's a mastery of vocal pattern here on Reborn that I think was inspirational to bands who came later. Number 6, No Longer. No Longer starts off feedback soaked until you hear the drums in the distance kind of driving towards you.
Drums in the deep.
And the song finally arrives 25 seconds in with, you guessed it, pummeling riffs, another catchy main riff, and just the angriest vocals that you've ever heard from a Christian metal band.
Do not know that
And honestly, that's probably my favorite part of the vocals of the latter-day Living Sacrifice albums, is that Bruce always sounds super pissed off. It's not even about the extremity of the scream. Like, sure, bands like Zao and Embodiment had more extreme vocals, but there's a grit and an unhinged anger in the way that Bruce screams here on Reborn that just adds to the brutality of everything else going on. Number 7, Something More. Something More is actually one of the first songs I ever heard by Living Sacrifice. I downloaded it off of one of those like P2P sites like Kazaa or LimeWire or Morpheus. They were changing so often that it was really hard for me to remember which one it was, but it was something that I was trying to basically nuke the family computer with. But this song definitely got me curious about Living Sacrifice as a band. It starts with this super eerie clip of a voice saying, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist." And it's played underneath the sound of like all of this guitar noise. At least I assume that it's guitar noise because it sounds more like giant sheets of metal scraping together, but once that intro is done, you were presented with an absolutely take no prisoners thrash metal assault. Man, Something More is so fast and aggressive that if I didn't know any better, I'd say that it was the heaviest song on the album, but there's one song that tops it. Liar! Which we're going to talk about in a little while. But man, this song put Living Sacrifice on the map for me. I could not wait to hear more. Number 8, Sellout. Sellout comes in with this creepy melodic acoustic intro, and these melodic moments were always very welcome, but never overused on Reborn. And again, this song is just packed with tasty riffs, complex rhythmic drumming, and pissed off vocals. Lance Garvin really doesn't get enough credit for how great of a drummer he is, but the dude is absolutely a machine and ends up pulling off way more amazing stuff before and after this album, if you can believe that. Number 9, Spiritfall. Spiritfall is next, and in the first 30 seconds, I'm already pummeled into the ground. On this song, you can kind of feel a little bit of that death metal past working into the sound. And it's cool hearing the band take everything that they've learned up to this point and putting it all together. The melodic break that starts at 2 minutes and 3 seconds sounds like something that easily could have been on Inhabit or non-existent. The song eventually builds back up and ends in a super brutal and epic fashion. Number 10, Presence of God. Presence of God is the instrumental song on the album, and it comes just at the right time because in 9 songs, we've gotten maybe like 3 melodic breaks, and those were pretty short-lived. The rest of it was just being pummeled into the ground. And don't get me wrong, I'm really into that sort of thing, but Presence of God is a welcome break from all of the chaos. And it's comprised mostly of this beautiful acoustic guitar melody and clips of voices in prayer that are layered in. It's just a wonderful calm before the storm. Number 11, Reject. And then on the 11th song, Living Sacrifice just casually drops Reject. Easily the band's most famous song, which has been talked about a million other times by other music reviewers. But you know what? I'm going to talk about it anyway. Reject operates on the principle that less is more. And sometimes the simplest opening riff is the most iconic one. The intro is brilliantly paced and brief. Just the main riff repeated over and over for 20 seconds until Bruce's voice kicks into it and all hell breaks loose. And by all hell breaks loose, I mean hell is breaking and taking a run for it.
You're locked in here with me.
2 minutes in, and you get only what can be described as a guitar feedback solo, which I had never really heard before. Bruce screaming, "Reject all lies," is the catchiest part of this record, and it's not even close. The band even recorded a music video, which people mistakenly think is just, video of people being blasted in the face with an air compressor. But in reality, Reborn is such a heavy record that it just causes people's faces to contort like that. Number 12, Liar. And we finally come to the album closer, Liar. Now, the closing track is important. This is where a band tends to slow things down to give their album a more epic feel and maybe throw some melodic moments in there so that they can leave the listener feeling deeply introspective.
This means something. This is important.
Now, let me be clear. Living Sacrifice does not do this on Liar. Remember when I said that Something More was almost the heaviest song on this album? Well, the number 1 heaviest song on Reborn goes to Liar, and it's not even close. See, as you listen to Reborn, you might have forgotten that the album before that was full-on blistering death metal. On Liar, you're going to remember that very quickly. Liar is speed incarnate with Bruce's most pissed off vocals ever. It's just an absolutely gross spectacle of brutality, which in retrospect, I kind of wish that they had made Liar a hidden track. Imagine if Reject had faded out and then like 8 minutes later you just hear, "I have seen the devil and I have chained him. I cut him to pieces. And then Liar proceeds to blast you into the ground. It would definitely teach you to never fall asleep while listening to Living Sacrifice ever again. That sound clip is actually amazing, and it's from The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1996, which would have actually been a newish movie when Reborn came out. But in conclusion, Reborn leaves you feeling beaten and bruised to your core, and wanting to start it all over again after the final lines of Lucifer is no more. And that is Reborn by Living Sacrifice. And it's actually kind of hard to quantify exactly how much influence this record had on the scene at large. But if I had to try, I would simply say what I've already said multiple times on other videos. This was a magical time for metalcore, and specifically Christian metalcore. With landmark albums like Reborn by Living Sacrifice, The Advent of a Miracle by Strongarm, Embrace the Eternal by Embodiment, and Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest by Zayo, a new era of heavy music was being ushered in by combining elements of metal and hardcore from two scenes that largely did not get along with each other before. And when you mix in a positive spiritual message into the formula, we knew that we had something very special on our hands. And a question that I get asked a lot on this channel is why I don't talk about new bands and new albums, which I'd probably get more views and subscribers that way, and that's probably true. But I think that albums like Reborn are great examples of why I don't cover new releases as much. It's because older albums like this had a very profound effect on me earlier in my life. But then also they continue to have a profound effect on me to this day. For instance, I made a post on this channel a few months ago saying that I was going to take an extended break from making these videos. And it was because I had started a new job back in September, and it wasn't what I was expecting at all. It just kind of sucked all the joy out of everything that I do. And it sucks because I've personally overcome a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. I quit my old podcast and had to start over from scratch, which sucked. And I stopped drinking back in 2021, which was actually awesome. That did not suck. And I gave up this 12-year nicotine habit last year. So it'll be a year in June. And I felt like I was really moving forward in life. And when I started this new job, wasn't what I was expecting, and it felt like everything had kind of ground to a halt for me. And luckily I was blessed with a week-long training out of town, and I spent a lot of that time in a hotel room reflecting on things, trying to figure out what I needed to do. And I know you're thinking, now Dan, what does this have to do with Reborn by Living Sacrifice? Well, I'm not sure how it happened, but during one of those days I was out of town. I was listening to a shuffle of my own music from my Plex server, and the song Something More came on. And I just decided that it was time to sit down and give Reborn another listen through. And now I was planning on making a video on Reborn before I took the trip, but this time I wanted to listen to it just to enjoy it for what it is. I pulled up the lyrics on my phone and I followed along, and I was literally assaulted with empowering and encouraging lyrics. From the title track, Reborn Empowered, which talks about feeling emboldened because all old strongholds have died and being given new life. It helped me realize that I was letting one small negative part of my life affect everything else. And because of that, I had gotten scared and I became depressed and complacent and lazy, and I'd kind of just abandoned my purpose. But then you had songs like Awakening that were kind of calling me out for that, with lyrics like, we must move on, steadfast faithfulness, put off laziness, wake up, awaken from sleep, open your eyes, receive. Healed of crippling lethargy, our spirits no longer reek of sleep. Reborn is essentially about combating internal and external adversity and declaring victory over it. Even if you remove the Christian connotations from the songs, I would challenge anyone to listen to Reborn and not feel empowered afterwards. Because the question that Reborn asked me was, you have changed and overcome so much, and you're gonna let this get in the way of your continued success? This album encourages me to leave the old ways of dealing with these things in the past where they belong. So yeah, I think when an album has the power 28 years later to still affect me in such a positive way, then it's absolutely worth discussing it instead of new releases that haven't yet stood the test of time. Thank you guys so much for watching this whole video. It means the world to me. Like I said in the sponsored segment, please sign up for my mailing list to get updates directly from me. And I am so stoked to see you guys again in my next video. Take care and stay empowered.